It's really tough when you feel invisible. First, we must break our invisibility by breaking it with ourselves. Second of all, we must fight the myth that in order to feel more visible, someone has to see me. And I want to talk about those today. I usually talk about how important it is for us to look to our past for answers, look to ourselves for healing, and look to the past programming for direction and how to heal. Many of us have grown up in dysfunctional families, some more dysfunctional than others. Some of us, invisibility problems were created very early in our life. We learned to hide part of ourselves. We learned to hide from others. So many of us were turned invisible through neglect, shame, rejection, abuse, guilt. As kids, we started out becoming invisible to ourselves and staying under the radar from a volatile, unsafe, scary, or dysfunctional family. And that, again, is due to fear. And we were taught that fear, which increases our anxiety as adults. And I don't have to tell you, if you felt invisible, just go try to be not invisible to others and see what happens to your anxiety and your fear. They go up very intensely often. And we have learned that from long ago, that that's how we should function in relationship systems. As adults, we continue to stay invisible out of fear to keep others' anxiety and reactivity down, to keep ourselves safe. So we're always, and that's that kind of codependent model, where I'm always scanning other people, I'm always watching to see how they're doing and how they're feeling, and I'll manage myself to manage their feelings and reactivity. And that's what basically codependency is. With invisibility, it's become even more so, where we might withdraw even further if we feel invisible. Oftentimes we've learned don't talk, don't feel, don't think in our family of origin growing up, or simply just don't be. Just don't exist, just don't be. And we absorbed that, took that in, and that's how we function now as adults. And it's very uncomfortable, it's very difficult, it's lonely, it's sad, and it's scary. And we also had the feelings that no one listens to me, no one understands me, nobody hears me. Respect is ignored in the chaos and dysfunction of in the dysfunction of the family when we were growing up. Boundaries are not taught or they're ignored because you are simply a part of the family super self. You're just a supporting actor or actress in this family play. And this is your role, to be invisible. Invisibility is about fear, anxiety, and worthiness. Two things are often true for the invisibility sufferer. One, my selfness, my being a self, my being self-differentiated, my sense of self seems to threaten others or upsets others. Secondly, my selfness seems to threaten me from a lack of self-bonding, self-love, self-caring, self-connectedness. And so selfness not only raises the anxiety and threatens others, it also raises my anxiety and threatens me. Now we have a double bind, a double dilemma. I want to mention I've got a workshop coming up on getting your family of origin out of you. Go to my website and check that out, please. So first, we want to break our invisibility by breaking it with ourselves. That's first. Why do I say that's first? When I read the literature, books, articles, and things like that, oftentimes those who talk about invisibility will combine two things together. Okay, set boundaries, love and value yourself. Well, if you're doing that at the same time, that could be problematic. And what do you think will tend to be more problematic? Setting boundaries, because that's with others. Because we haven't bonded with ourselves enough to make boundaries something we can begin to hold to, choose, and deal with holding to those boundaries. And so I often see in the literature and advice is to do all this at once. And I think that can be real problematic. And I've seen a lot of people struggle with that because they find themselves, well, have you ever heard this? I tried to set boundaries and it just didn't work. Well, that's the reason it didn't work is because you were not ready for flying the 747 when you haven't learned to fly the single engine plane yet. And some will say, oh, well, learn to love yourself and fly the 747. Just do those all together. It will be problematic. And I think a lot of people find that problematic. We first must begin to become less invisible to ourselves and to do our awareness work, our self-respecting work, our self-love work first. Because I've told people, okay, try it the other way first and see how you do. We know it's problematic because even the research done on assertiveness training, because maybe if we're invisible, we have trouble with assertiveness. And we probably do have trouble with assertiveness. But what we found in the research is if we train you to be assertive, but we don't do anything about your self-work, self-respect, self-love, self-bonding, that work, then you will do the assertiveness, feel good, and fall right back down into the rut again. And the assertiveness training won't be of much value because you need what's underneath it to make assertiveness work, in which you value you, you care about you, you feel you have a right, and that you have a right to set boundaries, and that you are confident about your boundary setting, and that you're ready to work on some other things, which I'll mention. So we want to do that inner work, the inner child work, the reparenting work, the self-differentiation work with ourselves. And I think of self-differentiation work is that awareness and defining. And then as you grow in that, you can begin to regulate yourself better and do the self-regulation. But if you try to regulate first without awareness or definition or self-definition, you're just going to fly the 747 into the mountain or into the ground. And then you're going to go, well, that doesn't work, and nothing works. And then you're going to become hopeless. And I've seen a lot of people become hopeless because I'm not sure they understood the process as well, and I'm not sure people have been teaching the process as well. So go slow, utilize a coach, a therapist, or a trusted guide who is experienced, and that will help you with that as well. Second of all, we must fight the myth to feel visible, someone has to see me. You know that's a myth. The feeling of invisibility and the feeling of being visible is something that's inside us. Obviously, when you're in the room, you're seen, Now, whether you're mattering to other people, that's another issue. And I understand how people can ignore you and not see you. But the real problem is the invisibility inside us. And when we believe this myth that others have to see me before I become visible, or feel visible, I should say feel visible, then we have the problem of others need to change before I can. Well, good luck. That doesn't work, what I've found in my work with self-differentiation. You cannot tie your wellness and healing and selfness to others must change first. If you do, it's going to be a lifelong stuckness, is what I felt. And from my own personal experience as well. With this belief that others have to see me first before I feel visible, that's an issue in which we are giving our power away with this belief. And there again, we're giving our power away. That others must see me, then I will feel visible. That's going to be problematic. Because they're not going to see you until you see you. They're not going to see you as visible until you feel visible. So we need a new question. Not, what can I do to make others see me? Which often people will take that recovery track or healing track. But a new question, what is required within me to feel visible? What is required within me to feel visible? And it can't be, they must see me, because that's going to be a conflict. And I think it is possible to feel visible and to change that feeling of visibility. And I think this kind of question, or these types of questions, will help retrain our brain in how we think about visibility. If you don't feel worthy to be seen or taken seriously, or to have your boundaries respected, well, don't start with boundary setting. Because, as I said with assertiveness, we won't stick to them. We'll try it, people will resist it, and we'll just give up and go, see, I'm never going to be respected or have boundaries. They will also sense our timidity in the emotional field when we interact with them. They'll know we don't have any kind of solid self. They'll know we don't really care about ourselves. We're just doing it in a bravado way. And they'll know that, and then they won't take your boundaries seriously. They really won't. And that's the distinction for boundaries to work or not work, or to assert boundaries, is for us to have a more solid self. Because that's what they will hear, that's what they will see. So that's why I like beginning with us and the self. Or with that, I need to get others to see me. Well, then I'll swing from invisibility all the way over to reactivity, which is pseudo-strength or false empowerment, like going from a 9 on a 10 scale and then falling back to 1 again over here on this side. Invisibility. Now I'm going to be ultra visible, but it's just reactive. And then I'm going to slide back over here again. And I believe that bravado and, well, I told her off and I told them and I told him that this is what I expected from him. That was your reactive self. Oftentimes that's not very sustainable. It also generally causes more resistance. Remember, making real changes in a relationship system requires courage, consistency, and patience. And those you can begin to learn, and those you can begin to acquire. I think it's also important that before we begin becoming visible to others, we have to be ready to accept the 3 stages of resistance in a relationship. For them to accept a new me, but I have to be solid first. Stage 1, they will respond, why are you doing this? Because you've perturbed the system. You've done something different, and now everybody's kind of, whoa, what's going on here? Second of all, the second stage of resistance, no, don't do this. I don't like this change. you need to stop. And then stage 3, if we continue with our goals, our definition, our boundaries, we get to stage 3, which is stop doing this or else. If we can go through all of those stages, that's when we see the system start to absorb the new self and the new us in the system. Again, check out the workshop on getting your family of origin out of you on my website. There should be a link below as well. In summary, begin with you. Move to others later. Self-work is first. Feelings awareness, resolving inner issues and inner wounds. Then move to the boundary work and making self changes within the relationship. I want to thank you for watching today. Have a great day and be wise.